Rama Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare
Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances of the Shri Prabhupada. Welcome to Voice of Morning Bhagavatam class. This morning we will be continuing with Canto 1, Chapter 12, verse 17, and the chapter is entitled The Birth of Emperor Parikshit. The class will be given by His Grace Parikshit Prabhu from ISKCON Harrisburg. Without further delay, we will go right into the class. Hari Hari Bol. You're muted. Oh, okay.
Okay. Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari 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 Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivadadari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivadadari Yashodanandana Rajajanarandana Yashodanandana Rajajanarandana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivadadari Yashodanandana Vrajajanarandana Yashodanandana Vrajajanarandana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Shri Radhe Jaya Radha Shama Sundar Radha Shama Sundar Shri Radhe Jaya Radha Sharad Bihari Radha Sharad Bihari Shri Radhe Jaya Jagannath Jaya Jagannath Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev Nitai Gora Haribo 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 Nitai Gora Haribo Nitai Gora Haribo 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 Nitai Gora Haribo Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivajikacharya Stotra Satyasi Shri Maharaj Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivajikacharya Stotra Satyasi Shri Maharaj Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai ISKCON founder Judge Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyam Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mathura Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Swami Ki Jai. Ganga Mahi Ki Jai. Chamunda Mahi Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Tagore Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Namo Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prasthaya, Buddha, Srimati Bhakti. Teta Swami Tinamni Namaste Krishna Vinaya Prabhupada Siddhapani Sri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Teta Tinamni Narayana Namaskritya Narunchevam Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tutujayam Vidirayat Nashta Prayeswa Bhadresu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhavata Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. This morning's class is from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 12, Text 17. Tasman namna Vishnurata iti loke bhavishyati na sandeho mahabhagavato mahan. Tasman namna Vishnurata iti loke bhavishyati na sandeho mahabhagavato mahan. Tasman namna Vishnurata iti loke bhavishyati na sandeho mahabhagavato mahan. Hare Krishna. You can chant if you want to.
Tasmanamna Vishnurata iti loke bhavishyati na sandeho mahabhagavato mahan. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else to try? All right. Word for word now. Tasmad, therefore, Namna, by the name, Vishnurata, protected by Vishnu, the personality of Godhead. Iti, thus, Loke, in all the planets, Bhavishyati shall become well known. Na, no. Sandeha, doubts. Mahabhaga, most fortunate. Mahabhagavata, the first class devotee of the Lord. Mahan, qualified by all good qualities. Translation by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. For this reason, this child will be well known in the world as one who is protected by this personality of Godhead. O most fortunate one, there is no doubt that this child will become a first-class devotee and will be qualified with all good qualities. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The Lord gives protection to all living beings because He is their supreme leader. The Vedic hymns confirm that the Lord is the supreme person among all personalities. The difference between the two living beings is that the one, the personality of Godhead, provides for all other living beings, and only by knowing Him can one achieve peace, from Katha Upanishad, can achieve eternal peace. Such protection is given by His different potencies to different grades of living beings. But as far as His unalloyed devotees are concerned, He gives the protection personally. Maharaj Parikshit is protected from the very beginning of his appearance in the womb of his mother. And because he's especially given protection by the Lord, the indication must be concluded that the child would be a first-grade devotee of the Lord with all good qualities. There are three grades of devotees, namely the Mahabhagavat, the Madhyamadikari, and the Kanishtadikari. Those who go to the temples of the Lord and offer worshipful respect to the deity without sufficient knowledge in the theological science and therefore without any respect for the devotees of the Lord are called materialistic devotees or Kanishta Adhikari, the third grade devotees. Secondly, the devotees who have developed a mentality of genuine service to the Lord and who thus make friendships only with similar devotees, show favor to the neophytes and avoid the atheists are called the second grade devotees. But those who see everything in the Lord or everything of the Lord and also see in everything an eternal relation of the Lord, so that there is nothing within their purview of sight except the Lord, are called the Mahabhagavatas, or first class or first grade devotees of the Lord. Such first grade devotees of the Lord are perfect in all respects. A devotee who may be in any of these categories is automatically qualified by all good qualities. And thus a Mahabhagavat devotee like Maharaj Parikshit is certainly perfect in all respects. And because Maharaj Parikshit took his birth in the family of Maharaj Yudhishthira, Yudhishthira is addressed herein as the Mahabhaga, or the greatest of the fortunates. The family in which the Mahabhagavat takes his birth is fortunate because due to the birth of a first great devotee, the members of the family, past, present, and future, up to 100 generations, become liberated by the grace of the Lord out of respect for his beloved devotee. Therefore, the highest benefit is done to one's family simply by becoming an unalloyed devotee of the Lord. Om Ganati Vedandasya, Gyana Ganashilakaya, Chakshu Amilitam Dina Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavam Cha. Sri Rupak Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam. Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam. Sri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakam Vitam Cha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate. Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostite. Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Paramami Hari Priye. Vancha Kalpatarubhesya Kripa Sindhi Eva Chapatitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Kucharini Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshichayani Namo Mahavaranyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namni Gaurati Namaha Ananda Lilamaya Vigrahaya Himavyadika Chavishindaraya Tasmi Mahaprema Raspadaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste, Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste. Hare Krishna. The English translation of this verse is, for this reason, this child will be well known in the world as one who is protected by the personality of Godhead. O most fortunate one, there is no doubt that this child will become first-class devotee and will be qualified with all good qualities. Hare Krishna. So this is the sages, the Brahmanas, explaining to Maharaj Yudhishthira what the child in the womb, what's going to be, the kind of child. This child is Maharaj Parikshit, the king, and the one that was going to rule after Maharaj Yudhishthira and the Pandavas left the administrative duties. So this child will be well known in the world as one who is protected. So Maharaj Parikshit is well known in the world because every time we talk about Srimad Bhagavatam, the Srimad Bhagavatam is the conversation between Shukadeva Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit, with Maharaj Parikshit asking the questions. So as long as Bhagavatam is around and Bhagavatam is all over the world, then Maharaj Parikshit will be all over the world because every time his name is mentioned in the Bhagavatam, and he's well presented there. So this is the prediction about the kind of child coming to the world that was given by the Brahmanas to Maharaj Yudhishthira, who was king at that time. Maharaj Yudhishthira's brother, Arjun, was the direct grandfather of Maharaj Parikshit. So Maharaj Parikshit's father is Abhimanyu, who died at 16 years old at the Battle of Kurukshetra, but his wife was pregnant at the time, and his wife Uttara is the one who gave birth to Maharaj Parikshit. And Abhimanyu, the father of Maharaj Parikshit, is in fact the son of Arjuna. So this is the connection. So in one sense, Maharaj Yudhishthira is the grand uncle of Maharaj Parikshit. So when the news was given to Maharaj Yudhishthira, obviously he would be very, very happy because he himself focuses on Krishna. And so when the Brahmanas say that this child, no doubt, will become a first-class devotee, will be qualified with all good qualities, then clearly for the child, this is very, 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 very good situation. His mentality is that of 100% devotion to Krishna. And that is a lesson that we have to learn. As Rupa Goswami keeps telling us, the book is there, so every time you read, it's like Rupa Goswami telling you over and over and over again, always think of Krishna, never forget Krishna. Always think of Krishna, never forget Krishna. And in doing so, things that come that's favorable to devotional service, you do them, or you make sure it gets done. Things that are not favorable to devotional service, you make sure you avoid them, because if you avoid them, then you do not rack up any kind of negative or negativities in your spiritual bank account. When a person becomes a devotee of the Lord, then the spiritual bank, the account is monitored by the Lord in the heart, the Paramatma. Those who are not devotees, their situation is monitored by Yamaraj, the superintendent of death. And he rewards, he awards the due repercussions for the things or consequences for the way the person has led his life. Now, one thing we have to note is that, yes, we have these physical bodies. We are the souls in the heart area of the physical body, along with the super soul who's also there. But we don't own these bodies. The Lord is the owner of everything. He says everything emanates from me. So if everything emanates from him, then it means it's both spiritual world and material world. And everything in the material world belongs to the Lord. So that's what we have to understand. So when we're saying, just as a matter of, the way people speak culturally, my body, yes, it's distinct from the soul, which is me. You have a physical body, but the physical body is not yours. Srila Prabhupada explains, like a physical body, he gives it an analogy like a physical body is an apartment. And if you're renting, then you certainly aren't the owner. The owner is there. And so the physical body, the owner of the apartment, is the one that can determine how long you stay there. You have an agreement, and at a certain time, or at his discretion, the landlord or the landlady can ask the tenant to leave. So leaving the apartment, leaving the physical body, the soul leaving the physical body is what we call death. And a person that's not a devotee, based on what they're thinking of at the time of death, then they will take another physical body. But devotees know that we have the opportunity to go back to the spiritual world. So when we leave a body thinking about Krishna, then we are guaranteed to go back to the spiritual world. While we're here, though, when we surrender to Krishna, he gives protection. As he says here, for this reason, this child will be well known in the world as the one who is protected by the personality of Godhead. Maharaj Parikshit was protected by the Lord. The Lord protects everyone. So protection is not restricted to only those that are in the Shastra, but everybody that's trying to live his life as a devotee comes under the protection of the Supreme Lord. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, text 13, Mahatmanas tu mam partha devim bhakritim ashrita bhajantya nanya manaso yatva bhutadim avyayam. So Krishna explains this, O son of Pritha, meaning Arjuna, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. So Krishna is explaining to Arjuna, those who are not deluded, those who know what's what. So there are people who are in illusion, thinking that they're gonna make it and be very happy in the material world. That's not possible. The material world is a prison. One doesn't go to prison to be happy. It doesn't work like that. People who are in prison are most of the time in anxiety. They have a little bit of peace of mind, and then something else happens, and then they have to deal with, because people around them are also not clean people mentally, and they sometimes cause a problem, and that one affects another, and so on. And so there's a society of prisoners, but still, because there are some who are deluded, deluded meaning that they don't know what's what, which way is up. And they are thinking, and they have this permanently with the thought that through their own efforts, they're going to make it and be happy in this world. Or they look at things that are not really giving happiness and they indulge in that and they think it's all right and therefore they're happy. Mm-hmm. Some people take intoxications and do all kinds of things to put their bodies in great distress. But then while they're doing it, they think they're enjoying. Srila Prabhupada gives the example that the pig likes to eat stew. We won't have anything to do with stew. We go to the bathroom and immediately get away from it after we flush, we're out of there. But this is what the pig gets attracted to. When people relieve themselves in the forest, then the pigs go, and that is what they enjoy. They enjoy. So what is that kind of enjoyment? So a human being is the worst thing that anybody would try to do. But the pig thinks that this is the way it is. If he eats other things, he will do this too. And so in one sense, the pig is deluded. Although he's an animal, didn't have that kind of intelligence. But this is how they live their lives. So in the material world, so much is there that is going to go against us unless we come under the protection of the divine nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that, those who do that, they are surrendered to the Lord and they are fully engaged in devotional service. They do devotional service as direct bhakti yoga based on Krishna's instructions, or karma yoga based on what they do, and then they give some of the fruits or all of it in service to the Lord and the Lord's devotees. That's karma yoga. Do your own, but then give the results to Krishna or Krishna consciousness projects. So Krishna says those great souls are fully engaged in devotional service. So they say they are engaged in devotional service. Therefore, if we want to be looked at as souls that are getting the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then we also have to be fully engaged in devotional service. That is the conclusion. They know the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the original and inexhaustible. Srila Prabhupada says in the purport for that particular text 9 and chapter 9, text 13, he says this is the description of a Mahatma. First sign of Mahatma is he's already situated in the divine nature and he is not under the control of a material nature. And that's done by surrendering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When one does that, then it means that person at once becomes free from the control of material nature. That's the qualification. Then Krishna will give protection. Just like in the case of one of Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, the residents were doing puja to Indra, the king of heaven, who's also responsible for the rains. But then Krishna, in order to help Indra's ego, cut it down to size, started a whole plan to convince his father Nanda Maharaj, who was king there, that Govardhan Hill is the one that supplies. In Govardhan Hill, the mountain is so much there in terms of fruits and plants. And so the cows, they get nourished. The people can take fruits from it. They get nourished. And so he said, it is in fact Govardhan Hill that's serving us. So rather than do pujas to Indra, we should honor Govardhan Hill. So it was agreed upon. And all the residents, based on what Krishna was about 7 years old at the time. And they agreed, the residents. And so the way Krishna laid out the plan, they followed it. They had so much that they had cooked, so much, mountains, heaps and heaps and heaps of foodstuffs prepared for Govardhan Hill. Krishna exhibited a wonderful situation in Govardhan Hill. He became Govardhan Hill. He accepted the offerings. So it's a very nice program they were having. In the meantime, Indra realized that what was going to be offered to him had now been offered to Govardhan Hill. And he got upset with the residents of Vrindavan. And he ordered the clouds that caused destruction at the end of life, when the planet itself is going through annihilation. Those clouds pour out water that can literally drown the planet. They're called Samvartaka clouds. So Indra ordered the Samvartaka clouds to proceed to Vrindavan and literally drown the residents. He meant to kill them. Now, the residents are 100% connected with Krishna. And therefore, as it says here, when the person is 10% or 100% devoted to Krishna, they get protection from Krishna. And so when the clouds and the lightning and all of that, they were started, the noise, the thunder, the rain, and the amount of rain that was falling and how quickly it was falling and how devastating the rain was, the flooding was, it became clear to the residents of Vrindavan that their lives were in danger. So they called on Krishna. And Krishna told them not to worry. He walked up to Govardhan Hill and lifted Govardhan Hill. And then he invited them to come underneath Govardhan Hill. And so the residents managed to get to Govardhan Hill, and that's where the protection was. And Krishna does a number of things at once. He gave them his darshan. For 7 days and 7 nights, he held Govardhan Hill with the smallest finger on his left hand. So there's so many things that he was doing at once. He was trying to show Indra how powerful he was. The Govardhan Hill could be lifted like that. That's not something Indra can do. And the residents were getting the darshan, means they were around Krishna and were able to drink in the beauty of Krishna, being able to look at him. They were not hungry, they were not thirsty, just perceiving the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they were so satisfied. Krishna was there, Balaram was there, and the residents underneath Govardhan Hill. So Krishna was giving protection. Govardhan Hill himself was getting, you can say, pelted with the rain that was falling on it. But because Krishna's finger was touching Govardhan Hill or holding Govardhan Hill at the bottom, Govardhan Hill was in ecstasy. And so all of that rain that was hitting Govardhan Hill didn't do anything to upset Govardhan Hill. So much was being done by Krishna. And then you can imagine, begin to think, all right, well, so the rain is falling. And if it's flooding and they're under Govardhan Hill, the residents are under Govardhan Hill, can't the water get underneath Govardhan Hill also? That's a good question. It's an acceptable question. If it's flooding, can it flood underneath Govardhan Hill? Well, Krishna took care of that. It's explained in the Garga Samhita that his expansion as Anantashesh, Anantashesh, the snake, was not visible to the residents, but he came around Govardhan Hill at a distance, just away from Govardhan Hill, but all around Govardhan Hill. Anantashesh is huge. And so the water was blocked from coming underneath the Govardhan Hill by the presence of Anantashesh, who is an expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, actually a direct expansion from Balaram. So he was protecting and keeping the water from coming underneath Govardhan Hill when the water was there. So what does he do? Krishna also invoked the Sudarshan Chakra. The Sudarshan Chakra, the wheel of destruction, it can do nothing can fight the Sudarshan Chakra. he employed that to come to another part of Vrindavan and begin to spin and dry up the flood, the water that was causing the flood. And so Indra saw all of this, and he realized that Krishna was giving protection. Nothing was coming on the Govardhan Hill. All the residents that he intended to kill were safe, and the flooding was not affecting them on Govardhan Hill. And slowly, the rains that were coming down were being evaporated by the Sudarshan Chakra at a rate that was faster. The evaporation was faster than the rain was falling. Therefore, the level of the flood kept going down and down and down and down and down, up to a point where the ground was beginning to show up again. And as the rain fell, the Sudarshan Chakra was so fast that it got to a point the rain falls and Sudarshan Chakra evaporates immediately. And that's when Indra realized that the power of Krishna was much bigger than him, and he realized he was dealing with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The main point is that Krishna gave protection to the residents of Vrindavan. Why? Because the residents of Vrindavan are always thinking about Krishna and how to associate with him and how to serve him. So as devotees, when we hear these kinds of stories, true stories, then the conclusion should be that if we surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, saying that I'm all yours, willing to serve, willing to relate well to devotees, then the protection would come. And also, then it gets to a point where we won't have to worry much about what goes on in our lives, because in the material world, there will be challenges. So that shouldn't worry us. We should be detached from it. Things come and then things go, just like the seasons. Maharaja Shabade was advising his sons, and he says, tolerate the way it is. Distress and happiness, they come and they go. At home, in Goloka Vrindavan, there is no anxiety, so you don't have to deal with the stress. So you have to just prepare by taking this process of bhakti seriously, so you can go home to a situation where there is no distress, no anxiety. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, text 55, it talks more about the path to developing the consciousness of a great soul. The translation of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, text 55 is, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O Arjuna, when a man gives up all varieties of desire for sense gratification, which arise from mental concoction, and when his mind, thus purified, finds satisfaction in the self alone, then he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. So this is how to develop consciousness of a Mahatma, a first-class devotee. When one gives up all the varieties of desire for sense gratification, the desire for sense gratification is given up. When the desire is given up, then definitely the activity itself is stopped too. Sri Krishna is saying that the varieties of desire for sense gratification arise from mental concoction. Why mental concoction? Made up in the mind. It's made up in the mind because the mind says, well, if you do this, if you do this, if you do this with your senses, you're going to be satisfying your senses and it's going to be a happy situation. Krishna says that's mental concoction. It's made up. It's not really true. One desiring sense gratification gets into that, and then it's like it's a never-ending situation. Wanting more, wanting more, wanting more. And then in the end, you realize that it's empty and there is no real satisfaction from it, but there's actual consequence that causes a problem to the body. So we have to be careful how we use our senses. We should use them for satisfying Krishna and Krishna's devotees. So when a man gives up, or a person gives up the varieties of sense gratification desires, Krishna says, when we do that, our mind is purified. And then we find satisfaction in the self alone. And that is the situation of pure Krishna consciousnness. Develop high consciousness. Now, when you say finding satisfaction in the self alone, what does that mean? So Srila Prabhupada explains it. The highly developed soul always remains satisfied in himself by realizing that he is an eternal servitor of the Supreme Lord. So finding satisfaction in the self means understanding that we are servant of a servant of a servant of the Supreme Lord and living that way. That is a transcendental situation. And Srila Prabhupada says such a transcendentally situated person has no sense desires resulting from petty materialism. It doesn't deal with materialism for satisfying the senses. So in that situation, he remains always happy in his natural position of eternally serving the Supreme Lord. So that is our natural position, to serve the Supreme Lord. And when we serve him lovingly, he also finds ways to deal with us, to protect us, to give us a situation where we also will be happy. So there's an exchange of love between the devotee and the Supreme Personality of Godhead in different types of relationships. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, text 22, Ananyas chintayanto mam ye jana parupasate teshan nityabhiyuktanam yoga shemam bahamyaham. Shemam, yoga shemam bahamyaham. Shemam means protection. The translation says, those who worship me always, this is Krishna talking, with exclusive devotion, and they meditate on my transcendental form, whatever they lack, I carry, and whatever they have, I preserve. So here, Krishna explains that if we worship him with exclusive devotion, that is going by the instructions of a spiritual master. This is how we start worshiping sadhana bhakti. And then later on, after we develop enough love for the Lord, we will follow naturally, do things naturally. Right now, we learn through the instructions of Guru and the Supreme Lord. So those who worship Krishna with exclusive devotion, meditating on his transcendental form, just like Rupa Goswami said, always think of Krishna. Then Krishna, whatever they lack, that's needed for their lives, Krishna will carry it. And whatever they have, they also will be preserved by the mercy of the Lord. So a section of the Prabhupada is saying that the devotee engage in devotional service by hearing, by chanting, by remembering, by offering prayers, worshiping, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, and rendering other services as needed, cultivating friendship, that is heart-to-heart love, and surrendering fully to the Lord. By the mercy of the Lord, such a devotee never comes back to this material condition of life. So as we said earlier, Shema refers to the merciful protection of the Lord. The help comes from the Lord to the devotee to help him achieve Krishna consciousness by bhakti yoga. And when he becomes fully Krishna conscious, then the Lord protects him from falling down into a miserable condition of life. So we do have the opportunity to improve our lives devotionally, transcendentally, spiritually. And the Lord is there to protect us. The Lord guides us from within by super soul, from without through the Shastra, and also the spiritual master, Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, from the outside, scriptures. If we follow that, then we will have a great chance to go back to the Supreme Personality of Godhead's abode, Goloka Vrindavan. So, a few tips for daily living. First, don't offend. Aparad is very, very, very bad. Offenses, they stop our quest to go back to the spiritual world. Why is that so? Well, those in the spiritual world have wonderful relationships, loving relationships among each other. And what we're doing here in the material world as devotees is learning how to get to the point of having good relationships with each other so that we get an opportunity to fit in when we are allowed back to the spiritual world. There is no particular formula that takes a person back to the spiritual world. It's all based on love and it's all based on the heart. When a person opens up to serve devotees, to serve Guru, and to serve the deity, and chants with sincere focus and attention, then that person is given the chance to grow, and also the love for Krishna from the heart, from the soul, becomes awakened. But the one thing that can stop a devotee from going back to Godhead is offenses, because we won't allow you to go back to a situation where people are loving and bring negativity into the spiritual world. That's not going to be allowed. Therefore, if we want to be allowed there, getting the mercy to go, it's by mercy that we go, not by formula, by mercy of the Lord. Then you don't want to offend his devotees. In fact, you don't want to offend anyone. But you have to be careful how you use your words, especially when the situation where there's disagreement, how you use your words. Say it in such a way it doesn't offend. When situations are very, 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 very tough, and it could be a situation where, anger could spring up, and there could be a very bad type of exchange, then it's best to get yourself out of there, physically out of there. Excuse yourself and get away, but don't offend. So you have to relate well, knowing that good relationships will cause devotees to help you during your transition time, the time when you're leaving the body. Devotees are the ones that come to remind us to chant the Lord's name, Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, to remind us. Now, we have to have good relationships with devotees for any devotee to stop what they're doing when they hear that it's time or we're getting close to leaving our bodies, and come to the location where we are and help us by chanting the Lord's name so we can remember and think about the Lord and go back home. It's devotees that help other devotees. Now, if you have a relationship with a particular devotee that's not so good, or you've been offensive to them, would they come to help you make your transition back to Godhead? It's probably unlikely. They may have good they have good hearts. The devotees have a good heart. And they may say, all right, well, we wish him well. Hopefully he'll go back to Godhead. But to physically leave what they're doing and where they are and get to where the person is, where you are getting ready to leave your body, it's most likely not going to happen because the relationship has been soured. It's been made sour earlier, and the person is just staying away from you. So good relationships are very, very, very important. It's good to maintain now. Either you have a close, nice, loving relationship, or you should have a relationship that is good enough. That's nice. It's may not be may not be very close with all the devotees, but you should always be nice to them. And one thing my Guru Maharaj did, and I saw him do that several times, is that when he sees a devotee, he will say Hare Krishna, and he will always, always smile. And the smile gives good vibes, and it makes the person realize that he's cared for by him, that the relationship is valued by him. So something as simple as a smile makes all the difference in the world. When he looks the devotee in the eye and says Hare Krishna, and immediately he starts smiling. So if we get into bad relationships or criticize, that causes a strain in relationships. sometimes we criticize a person that may not be in our immediate, wherever we are immediately. But criticizing them, again, there's an analogy given by Bhakti Swami. Criticize is say bad things about a person. And saying bad things is like throwing bad things at them. What's bad things? Physically, trash. So criticizing is like throwing trash at a person. Would you want to physically throw trash at anyone? How would they take it? Hmm? So criticism, we don't involve ourselves in that. Hmm? When something is not that great about a particular person and you mention it, then you are mentioning it in order to come up with a solution for fixing that particular situation. That means you're going to do something about it. Now, in that situation, of course, you have to bring out what's wrong because you're going to correct it or help correct it. If you cannot do it yourself, you can see someone else and explain as somebody in a position of authority or somebody the other person respects, and then you explain to them how you're feeling in the mildest of words. Bring out the point. Maybe that person will be able to intercede or talk to the one that you have an issue with. But if you just criticize, talk about the person negatively and walk away, there's no solution, then that even is in the category of gossip. Prajalpa, gossip, and that's not allowed. Besides, bad relationship blocks all blessings too. So we have to be careful how we relate to devotees so that when we have our relationships, then there will always be that thought of goodwill for everybody. And that is the kind of thought that's in the spiritual world. And then that makes yourself qualified to be in the community of devotees in the spiritual world. And for that reason, you'll be allowed to go back to the spiritual world. Not to mention the fact that we have to start chanting and chanting more seriously. If we're chanting, yes, that's good. If you're chanting a few rounds, try to increase that round, because the more that you chant, the more rounds you put in, the more you mention Krishna's name, and Krishna is absolute. Krishna's name is Krishna. So the more you mention Krishna in the mantra, the more you have Krishna's attention. And that is only to our advantage. Because those in the spiritual world think about Krishna all the time. They don't have to be told. Their love is very strong and it's there, and the activities that they do are all directly or indirectly to serve Krishna. Serving Krishna directly or serving one who is going to be serving Krishna directly. And this should be the aim of our life. As far as the material goes, the physical body is there. Yes, we have to do what is necessary to maintain the physical body. But our important mindset should always be how to relate well to devotees, to practice the situation that have been put in, how to relate well to devotees. Practicing good relationship with devotees all the time, so that that would be looked at by Krishna favorably. And as it says in Sri Guru Astaka, Yashat Prashad, Bhagavat Prashad, by the mercy of Krishna, then one gets Guru, one gets initiated, and then the path to the spiritual world is wide open now for us to go. It is through initiation, because the spiritual master that initiates is the one that takes the person after you leave the body to Krishna and pleads the case for that person to get the mercy of Krishna to be allowed back to the spiritual world. But the preparation is on us. We relate well, Krishna will make sure that we get a guide, a spiritual master, to get initiated, and the things that we do wrongly be corrected, which is we have to be humble enough to take correction, and slowly and slowly and slowly improve our lives materially in the mode of goodness, and then transcendentally by chanting, hearing, and doing the other processes that add up to the 9 processes in which we love. We express love and devotion to the Lord. So the opportunity is there for us. It's just a question of how seriously we take it. So through this, the part is being done on the Lord's side, as we see in this particular text. He has invited Maharaj Parikshit, the pure devotee of the Lord, to continue, and his activities would be recorded. His activities as a king and how he rules, we can learn from. So Maharaj Yudhishthira is going to be leaving, and now he's been assured by the Brahmanas that Maharaj Parikshit is the one that's going to be there as the next king. And Krishna wanted it so much that even when Ashwatthama tried to throw a Brahmastra, a very formidable weapon, to try to destroy the womb and also destroy the child in the womb, that Krishna came to his protection. So we are protected when we connect with Krishna consciousness as a priority in our lives. And when we relate to devotees properly, and we take to the process through the instruction of Guru, we are literally guaranteed to go back to the spiritual world. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, thank you for allowing me to do the service of preaching this morning. See, we have quite a few participants here. There is a question in the chat from Madana Suya. He says, is it possible for Kanishta devotee to rise to the platform of Madhyam and Uttama? And the question is there a process? And he says, please discuss that. I think that's it. This is to me directly. All right, so the text talked about Kanishta, Madhyam, and Mahabhagavat or Uttama. So Madam Sri will want to discuss a little bit more about that. All right, so in the purport of the text today, Srila Prabhupada said there are three grades of devotees: Mahabhagavat, Madhyam Adhikari, and Kanishta Adhikari. And he says those who go to and he started from the Kanishta Adhikari, those who go to the temple of the Lord, they offer worshipful respect to the deity. They come to the Lord who was deity wonderfully as best they can, but they don't have sufficient knowledge about Krishna consciousness, and so they don't respect the devotees of the Lord, but they come for the deity. Those are called materialistic devotees or Kanishta Adhikari, third grade devotees. Secondly, the devotees who develop a mentality of genuine service to the Lord, and they make friendships with people who are their peers, devotees, and those who are neophytes, they show favor to them, mercy to them, and those who are atheistic, they don't deal with them. They are called second-grade devotees. So Madam Sri's question is, how does a person that is in a Kanishta situation, third-grade devotee, come to the second-grade devotee, that level? Well, it comes from association. When a person, it's two things. When a person who is a Kanishta Adhikari or third class begins to hear and chant the holy name, Krishna will help them from within. But the one thing that makes people come to the second class level is to relate to a person who is at that level. Make friends with them, learn from them, and the person who is a neophyte then, or Kanishta Adhikari or materialistic devotee, will learn by being a friend. So those who are at the second grade level can also make friends with those who are in the third grade level or Kanishta Adhikari. It's not always that the Kanishta Adhikari is going to say, well, I want to go to Madhyam, therefore I'm going to a second class or even a first class devotee and relate to them. The second class devotee can also reach out to those who need help to help them to grow. Now, Srila Prabhupada also says, those who see everything in the Lord, or everything of the Lord, or from the Lord, and see an eternal relationship of everything with the Lord. So for them, everything they see is based on their conception that the Lord is control, and that is a correct conception, control of everything, the owner of everything. And those are called the Bhagavata, or the first great devotees of the Lord. They are devotees of the Lord. They are perfect in all respects, Srila Prabhupada says. Now, how does one come to that particular level? It is advised to us that at the very least, we should be at the second grade level. It is not easy to come to the level of a first class devotee. First class devotees are in two categories: those who are Nityasiddhas, those who have already been at that level, not contaminated from a spiritual world. They know what the material world is like. Even when they come to the material world, they're still at the first class level. They see everything in relation to the Lord. An example of that is His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Those who are like that, they will tune themselves down to the second grade level in order to be able to preach, because those who are Mahabhagavatas, who are first class, they see everything in relation to the Lord. But those who are not, they'll see differences. This is good, this is bad, this is good, this is bad. But the first class is what it says, everything is from the Lord. So they connect with the Lord in everything that they see. But in order to be able to tell those who are below them, they have to bring themselves down to the second grade level and then able to preach. Because then first grade or Mahabharata, they're in ecstasy all the time. They're in ecstasy all the time. Because everything they see in relation to the Lord. So it becomes difficult for people to understand them when they show those symptoms of being appreciative of everything about the Lord, material or spiritual. It doesn't matter to them. It's from the Lord, it is revered by them. So they bring themselves down to the second grade level. So the important thing is one should get themselves up to, at the very least, second grade level. And when they develop more and more love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, when they grow more, they obey in the Sadhana Bhakti. The Sadhana Bhakti is Bhakti by instruction, what to do, what not to do. They obey it to the T, 100%. And then they develop more and more and more and more love, because the more you repeat something, it becomes a habit, and then you like to do it, and then later on you love to do it. So doing that service, we develop love for who we're doing the service for, which is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna Prema. Then slowly we can get to the first class level also. But at the very least, we should be at the second class level, which is, so then I'll repeat what a second class person is. They develop a mentality of genuine service to the Lord. That already is a great boon for them. A mentality of serving the Lord from the heart. They make friendship with devotees at their level. They show favor by giving help, assistance to those who are new, and those who are atheistic, avoid them. That is at the very least where a devotee should be at. And so we should strive to get to that second grade level and not stay at Kanishta all the time. Kanishta is the third grade that comes to the temple, deals with the deity, worships the deity, gives some money, and then they turn around, but they have terrible relationships and don't care about devotees of the Lord. And those are third class or materialistic devotees. We should not, if we are there, stay at that level at all. Associate with Guru, associate and get help from Guru, and also get help from the second grade devotees. So senior devotees who've been around for quite a while, they'll help us to get from the third to the second level. Hare Krishna. Are there other comments or questions? If you want to, you can raise your hand. I don't see any more questions in the chat section. Or if somebody wants to comment and you take away also they had, that's also, it's up to you. Hare Krishna. Okay, so If there are no questions then today is Wednesday. There will be a 6 o'clock Bhagavad Gita Circle reading. I think it's Balbhadra Prabhu from ISKCON Atlanta will be reading today and also discussing from what he reads in the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Yoga of the Supreme Person. So if you can, please tune in at 6 o'clock to hear that too. More nectar. Vanchakalpatarubhascha kripasinivya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So dear devotees, you have a good Krishna conscious day. Hare Krishna. Jai. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Okay.